Okay, perfect. Can I get a thumbs up if you can hear me okay? Because I'm in Saudi Arabia and one is never really sure. Okay, great. Perfect. Hello, everyone. And thank you very much, Wallace and Ryan. Wallace, this is a great opportunity. I appreciate the fact that SchoolRubric is really committed to telling stories because I'm not an expert, but I do think I have a really good story to tell about how the particular school I'm the principal of now in the district has responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I've entitled this Leading in Challenging Times. And the great part about this exercise is that it really forced me to go back and think through the steps we took that made for a really excellent, in this case, distance learning program for our school and our community. So like Wallace said, I have 16 years as a principal. I have 30 years in education. Again, this is a great chance for me to tell the story of how Dhahran School and Saudi Aramco Expatriate Schools has responded. Now, Saudi Aramco Expatriate Schools is owned and operated by Saudi Aramco, the oil company. And we have 6 schools, 3,900 students total. The schools are spread out in 4 different communities. And I'm the principal of the largest middle school, grades 5 to 9. We have 1,100 kids. So we're now delivering our distance learning program to the entire district, and specifically in my case, 1,100 different students, grade 5 to 9. I wanted to think of a kind of an organizational theory to start with. And the one I fell back on is Lee Bowman and Terry Deal's kind of their 4 frames. Reframing organizations. They talk about lenses or frames. So they talk about the structural, the human resources, the political, and the symbolic. And that's about the most esoteric as I'm going to be today. So if there's anything you walk away with that you want to follow up on, that really is Lee Bowman and Terry Deal's the 4 frames of leadership. So as we approach this, and as I would approach any challenging issue or just leadership in general, you got to assemble your team. And when I thought about that, I thought about we need to build a container, or a vessel in this case, to move our school from point A to point B, which was face-to-face learning to a distance learning program. And so when I looked at assembling a team, I thought to myself, well, who are the people who have their hands on the levers? Who are the people who can make the greatest impact? And I started with a group of people, and none of them were teachers in the classroom at the time. All of them had been teachers. But I started to build this team to deliver our distance learning. I started with, the people in our tech office, the school counselors, the chief librarian, LMC coordinator, and the administrative team. That was the group that kind of like the architects or the engineers that were going to build this vessel, because I knew the teachers and the students would be in it doing the daily work. So how could we build a container or a vessel to deliver this program successfully? And it started by assembling the right team. In this case, the people with their hands on the levers, the hands that could build this. It was going to rely on the tech system. It was going to rely on an emotional component, and it was going to rely on, obviously, the instructional coaches were also part of that team. So I'll talk about how all those things fit into those 4 frames of Bowman and Deals. So when I assembled the team together, this is really important. We started with our mission, vision, and values, and those get a lot of, people, they get a lot of lip service. But in our case, it wasn't just the posters on the walls. It was really about us, the team. What did we believe? What were the reasons we woke up in the morning? Why did we come to school? What was the most important pieces for us? And so we started specifically with the 2 questions you see there on the slide. We didn't do any research to begin with. We started with, what is the ideal online learning situation for our students? And what's the ideal online teaching situation for teachers? We divided into 2 groups. We literally went to blank paper and we just started with those pretty simple questions, but they turned out to be very, very fundamental, because that was going to be our true north. That was going to be what we were working towards. So again, the mission, vision, and values of your institution, your school, but it also has to do with the people on the team, and starting with, what is most important to us moving forward? What are the ideal situations so that we can build a structure so people can succeed in those. After we did that on our own, and really looked inside ourselves and inside our school, then we consulted, with the experts. And I'm using the building the plane in flight analogy here. So if we were the engineers and we were the architects and we were putting together this plane in flight, we started with our goals. But then after that, that placed us in a good position to then consult with experts. So we got on the Zoom and the Skype and the Google Meets for all of our colleagues in the Far East who were already in the midst of delivering distance learning programs. And we spent a couple hours with 5 different schools, a couple in China, one in Korea, one in Bangkok. They were all ahead of us, so to speak. And so after we did our piece, we spoke with them, we collected as much wisdom as we could, and then we reviewed the 16 or so different international school plans that had been created. One of the really good outcomes of this has been the amount of sharing collegially and professionally across schools and continents. So then we researched all kinds of different plans that schools had put online. There's a big Facebook group. So then we did our research. So we started by looking in a mirror. Then we looked outside ourselves. But then the really key point here is the team came back and we recalibrated. We didn't just adopt things that other schools had done because those worked for them. Those worked for their communities. Those worked for their students. Those worked for their teachers. So we had to take everything and go back to our initial lens, our initial what's ideal for us, what do we value, and then we did a lot of deliberating, we did a lot of filtering and tweaking and adjusting, and I think that's an essential piece that every team needs to do as they face a challenge, because the challenge they're not interchangeable challenges we all face. They are a reflection of the communities we're in, the schools we're in, and the people that we're working with. So this allowed us to really tailor it and customize it and make it work for our school. So then our decisions, this really goes back to Bowman and Deal, then our decisions, everything that we decided, we had to really talk about how they were going to impact these 4 lenses. So the structural frame is what it sounds like. It's the structure. It's the nuts and bolts. It's the, what does your school day look like? We drilled it down to, what does your lesson plan look like? What does homework look like? What do assignments look like? How many hours a day are students going to be online? So the structural frame are the nuts and bolts. When will our teachers plan? How will they work together? How will they collaborate? The human resources frame is really talking about the human capital we have. It's the people. It's the, it's the hearts, it's the minds, it's the souls, it's the parents, it's the students, it's the teachers. So as a leadership team, we had to consider, who we were working with and all of our decisions, how it was going to impact them. The political frame really is about your stakeholders. You have to get investment. All of your decisions have to be supported by your superiors, supported by the parents, bought into by the students and teachers. So the decisions you make have to impact the political frame as well. And then the symbolic frame. So what are your decisions that are going to inspire? What are your decisions that are going to capture the spirit and motivate and have people believe they're part of something bigger than themselves that's incredibly important? If you attend to just one of those frames more than the other, and you forget one, you're going to have some trouble. In the same way, if you can come up with decisions that impact all 4 of those things, you're really going to be effective as a leader in a challenge. So the next 3 slides are really specific examples how these cross-cut the 4 frames. So here's the structure we came up with in delivering our program. Talking to all the different people we did and researching, we said there are 4 goals of our program. One is, how are we going to stay connected as a community? How are we going to connect kids to teachers, kids to kids, teachers to families, school to families? Connection was huge. We heard that across every school. Learning, obviously, that's at the center of our work. Arguably, connection has to be there before any learning takes place. But the learning, we had to get really clear about what did our lessons look like. How do you teach effectively from a distance using the tools that we had? And if you skip the middle, I'll come back to that, then there's structure. We talked about how important that daily routine was going to be for our students, for our teachers, for our families. We're all in lockdown. We're about the only thing our kids have going for them. So we had to focus on our structure. And then a balance. We heard from every school that they were overwhelmed at the onset. Very early on, teachers and students were all overworked, and everyone was exhausted, and distance learning fatigue was real. So we focused on those 4 cornerstones, or those 4 pillars, or those 4 elements: connection, learning, structure, and balance. And we built the whole thing on our core tools. We said, these are the core tools you will use to start. And we built our plan in phases. So the structures we provided around connection, learning, structure, and balance, and the fact that we said, here's where we're going to start with these tools, and we're going to build in phases. We built a 2-week plan, then we built a 4-week plan to extend that, then another 4-week plan. And each plan varied based on our experience, knowledge, skills, and feedback. So this tied into the structural piece. This tied into the human resources piece because we were focused on connection and balance. This tied into the symbolic piece because we had this nice, tidy graphic. And the political piece, our people could get behind it. Parents, our bosses, everyone. This is an example of a Spark note that goes out every single day from the middle school office. I write a message every single day, and then it's also filled with pictures of student work. There's announcements in it, but largely it's my message from the principal, which is very symbolic. It's very human resources oriented, and the structural piece it comes out every single day, and it's filled with pictures of student work. All kinds of submissions, to fine arts, to band, to PE and wellness, to poetry, whatever they're doing in their core classes, science projects. Every single day that comes out from our office, and it crosses those 4 frames. And then finally, I think this is our regular logo at school. Okay, not a big deal until you understand. If we talk about symbolic and being something connected, important, this is the regular logo. However, the next slide. So that little logo was kind of done as a joke, the Dhahran School Distance Learning logo with the Wildcats and his headphones. It was kind of done as a joke, but it took on a life of its own, and it became, it's there every single day on the distance learning notes. It's on the web pages. We use Power School Learning, and it's all our kids. That's the icon they click on, and it takes them to everything they need for the entire distance learning platform. So it's the portal, that icon, like I said, originally it was kind of done just, for fun, but then the meaning it has taken on through this process has been symbolic. It's also structural because kids know when they go to that, it's going to take them, and teachers and parents, when it takes them to the portal for distance learning. So it's really served a couple different purposes. In summary, we lead in challenging times the way we lead all the time. What changes is the composition of the team. And that's something I'm confronting right now as we look at putting together a team to, come back to school at some point. It's like, who are the people that need to be on that particular team to help us come back to campus as a community and heal and reassimilate and move forward, taking all the great things we've learned forward. So that's our story of how we've responded to COVID-19. We had a huge advantage because we started at the end of January, early February, so we had 6 weeks. And the other advantage we had is we had good friends in the Far East who were already experiencing it. So we capitalized on those 2 things. Thank you very much.